I've got some folk traveling, so you pray for them. Folks sick. Brother Jim, I'll mention again in a minute, but Brother Jim was to have surgery on Friday. They moved that now to Monday at Vanderbilt for him. So be in prayer for him. As I did last week, I want to do again. This is kind of prayer time. It's a time of prayer. We have a midweek service, but it's kind of a prayer meeting time. And I just want to read to you, again, a missionary letter. I don't read it all. It's extremely lengthy. But I just picked out a few things I want to mention to you. This is the B&L ministry, Bible and Literature Missionary Foundation over in Shelbyville, Tennessee. And we've been supporting them for quite a while now. And tremendous work goes on there, getting out Bibles, by the hundreds of thousands. But let me read you this letter, just part of this letter that I just got. It said, God's Word changes lives, Korean Bibles on the way to South Korea. 60% of South Korea claims no religion at all. 60% of South Korea, no religion at all. 16% are professed, as you know, Buddhist. 6% are Catholic. There are a handful of professed Protestant churches that includes charismatic cults, et cetera, those churches that don't even preach the gospel, okay? BLMF was incredibly thankful for the amazing opportunity to print the entire Bible in the Korean language for the first time. For more than 20 years, Korea has needed a Bible that could be printed without exorbitant fees. After 10 years of labor by several pastors, there is finally a wonderful Korean Bible that can be freely printed and distributed as the King James Bible. We loaded 32,000 of these whole Bibles onto a container, asking God to allow His Word to have free course throughout the region there. Christians are persecuted still in North Korea, yet believers are begging for the Scriptures. We got them all over our house, but they're begging for them. Please pray that God will work mightily, make a way for His Word to flourish and see a multitude of souls saved. They are having their B&L conference over in Shelbyville, October the 16th through the 18th. This ministry has been going on for over 50-something years now. And so it's a great ministry. I just read it right here. I didn't read it. I saw it. Annual Scripture Conference, 55 years, their anniversary. We support them, gladly support them, okay? All right, let's take our Bibles and turn to Exodus 20, chapter 20 in Exodus. We're still going through the Ten Commandments, and again, as we roll through them, we're up to number 5. We find many children who hold their parents, don't hold their parents in high regard. Too often, I'm in a store and I'll see children who are very, very rude to their parents. Y'all have probably seen it too. Too often, good old mom and dad are seen as obstacles, to be overcome rather than to seek their wise guidance and follow them and emulate them, okay? This 5th commandment we're going to look at, we need the children in here, but anyway, this 5th commandment, God lays down a principle for life that will determine how every relationship around you will turn out. Every relationship, okay? You see, the home is the foundation, y'all. It's the foundational institute for our society. No nation, community, or a community of people is stronger than the family structure that makes them up, okay? We were raised, many of us gray-haired saints were raised in an era and a generation of hard-working people. Christian people. I didn't have an aunt that wasn't a Christian. I had one that was so close to the Lord, she bothered me sometimes. We'd go blackberry picking. And it didn't matter what the snake was. She just pick it up and snap it, you know. I said, that's going to bite you. She wasn't worried about that. She never did get bit. I got scared, but she didn't get bit. See, hey, as goes the home, so goes the nation, so goes the community, and also, Brother Adrian, so goes the church. In the home, God has established an order that is to be strictly, I can't say strictly enough, followed. The husband, the father, is to be the head of the home. Submitting himself to the will of the Heavenly Father. He needs to be a godly man. The wife is to be subject to her husband, not a doormat that he wipes his feet on, but a helpmeet, okay? The children are to submit themselves to their parents. And in doing so, hey, all will be blessed, okay? All will be blessed. In this order, if this order is followed, again, then the home will be blessed and all those involved in the home will be blessed. Yet many homes they're in shambles tonight, y'all. Because children are, they have forgotten or don't even realize or know the fifth commandment. In this, it is fitting that this commandment falls where it falls. It divides the commands relating to God from those relating to man, okay? We've already seen the 4 that relate to God. Now we're going to see the next 6 that relate to man. You see, when we're out of step in the home, we'll be out of step with God. And we'll also be out of step with our fellow man, I think. See, it is in the parental relationship that we learn first how to submit to the Lord, and then how to, be servant to man even. And as we take just a glimpse into this tonight, and hopefully we'll get through it, but I don't know, let's just think about this. Honor thy father and mother. Honor thy father and mother. Look at it, if you will, with me. Honor thy father and thy mother. Look here. That thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Let's read it again. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. I see folk who live to be in their 90s, up in their upper 80s, and every time I see them, Miss Diane, I think of they honored their mother and father. They honored their mother and father. I look at Miss Kitty, and I'll use her, but I could go all around the room here. But she honored her father and mother, I can assure you. Her mama took her when she was a little bitty baby to church, and she's still in church at years old. She's still here, okay? So let's look at this. There is a respect that is demanded here, and an elevated recognition. This verse makes it plain that parents are to be held in high regard by their children, okay? Honor thy father and thy mother. What that equals is to give great weight to or to hold as valuable. Did you hear me? Honor thy father and thy mother. Hey, that honor means to give great weight to or to hold as very, very valuable. Children are to hold their mother and father in high respect. I hate to see someone, and I did it myself as a teenager. I'm not proud of it, but I was rebellious in many areas. We'll probably talk about that more in a minute. But I was rude sometimes to my parents. I was disrespectful sometimes to my parents. Hey, we didn't have a perfect home, but they raised me. My daddy raised me. I was telling you a while ago about my father. And he raised me, Brother Roy. He gave me a work ethic. He saw to it that if we were out of school, during the summer, we was at the Red Rose Dairy working. My brother, then myself, and so on. When I elevated myself from that job to across the street from where we lived to the Jackson Motel as a bellhop. I had a great work ethic. When I got out of high school and went to GE, I was telling Brother Silas, in a little over a year, probably a year and a couple of months before I went in the military, I had 7 promotions. My daddy could use his hands extremely fast. Brother Roy knows. He knows. But see, he taught me to do the same thing. So when I went to General Electric, I could do all that stuff in my hands as fast as lightning. See, here we're to honor and respect our parents. They're not just 2 old fools who are trying to ruin our fun. Okay, I thought they were. They have been placed in our lives by a sovereign, almighty God to oversee until we reach that age of maturity. Now, again, I'm not for this. I've argued this with my granddaughter and others as well. But this mentality that parents have today, that when the child turns 18, they're an adult. They're not an adult by any means. That's a number. That's a number. I've seen 40-year-olds who weren't adults. I've seen immature 40-year-olds. Okay. I had a friend, and he passed away in his 60s, early 60s. He lived in the 60s. He lived his whole life back in the 60s. Every time we'd go somewhere, every time we'd do something, he was like, hey, remember what we done back in 63? I said, I don't want to. I don't remember what I done back in 63. But that's where he lived. See, in the early stage of our life, while a child is maturing, sure, from birth to adulthood, they are to be absolutely subject to their parents. Children are to offer unquestionable obedience to their parents. We got some parents in here who have young children. We have some who have teenage children in here. But let me speak to you others as well. You've got grandchildren, and you've got great-grandchildren, probably some of you. And you need to help mom and them out if you can with this kind of thing, because it's getting out of hand. And this is the reason why. I was telling this story. Who was I talking to? Oh, I know who I was talking to. Brother Mike Curley. And we were talking about this. I was in a Cracker Barrel, Brother Reuben, one night, Sherry and I saw this family come in, 2 boys, a mom and a daddy. And they walked in, sat down, and immediately pulled out their phones. The 2 boys played some kind of game. Mama was texting, and Daddy was on the phone. I don't know, other than ordering, I don't know if they ever said a word to anybody but the waitress. I never saw them talk. I never saw them. It's a demon, y'all. It can be a demon if we're not careful. It can take us over. See, but when a child refuses to obey his or her parents, they again are in effect refusing to submit to the Lord. Let me read you Colossians 3:20. Children, obey your parents in all things. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing unto the Lord. When they refuse to do that, then they're pretty much submit to God, to the Lord. There'll be times, there were times in my youth when I disobeyed my parents. I was wrong in doing it. I was very wrong in doing so. I wish I could go back and fix it, but I can't. If I could go back and fix it, I tell you what I'd do. I'd live with this verse right here. I'd live with this verse right here if I could go back and fix it. But I can't go back and fix it. So young people who are still living under the roof, I call it, the roof of the parents, hey, they need to treat their parents well. They need to treat their parents well. They need to realize what they've done for them, what they've sacrificed for them. See, it's discouraging and it's frightening to see a child again, a young person being disrespectful to their parents. And you see it all the time in stores, I'll tell you. They throw a temper tantrum, they throw a fit. and they get their way. Hey, it spells trouble down the road, y'all. It spells trouble down the road. It shows a lack of regard, again, for God. It's a sign of deeply rooted sinfulness. And we know children, I don't care, hey, if they're a year old, 3 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, 16 years old, whatever, okay? There's absolutely no excuse for any behavior that attacks, disrespects, or dishonors your parents. My mama would knock me through a wall. I mean, they'd have got her today, they would have got her for child abuse. You know? It's sad. We'll talk about that later, too. I mean, I'm not talking about beating a child. Don't get me wrong. But the rod needs to be put to them every once in a while. And there's a place for that. And I can remember the days, we were talking about it with somebody just recently. I can remember the days of the paddle with the holes in it. Miss Alice? I can remember those days. And I remember being bent over that desk. And I remember being popped about 3 times. Red Owen popped me about 3 times one time. If y'all know Red Owen, some of you do. But, I mean, he raised me up off the floor. But, hey, I needed it. I deserved it. What I'd done, I deserved it. I look back on it now. At that time, I didn't think I deserved it. I pleaded, begged. No, I didn't do nothing. None of us ever do anything. You know, we've never done nothing. But this is just a sign, okay? Let's go ahead and go on. And this is an esteem to render. You need to give them an esteem to your parents. As we grow older, I think we need to continue to regard our parents. There's no age limit on this, y'all. There's no age limit on this. As long as you're alive and mom and dad's alive, you still need to respect them. Highly respect them. Hey, as we grow up, I know as we grow up, it's natural. It's natural for us to leave our parents, okay? Genesis 2:24 says that. Therefore shall a man, leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife. They should be one flesh. I use that often when I'm at a wedding ceremony or doing a wedding. I have a lot of these young girls who don't want to go by that old vows I give them, especially that that says you'll obey him, you'll submit to him. They kind of hiccup through that one. Yeah, they don't like them. They don't like it. You can see the look on their face. And a lot of times I've seen them, they'll look over and like, yeah, all right. Hey, you need to respect. You need to respect your mom and dad. I know many look to this day that they'll get out of mom and dad's house, okay? The way I got out of mom and dad's house was Uncle Sam went to call him. And it's kind of hilarious because my friend, he went to the mailbox and I was with him. He said, "What's this right here?" Open up. Oh, man, I've been drafted. I just died laughing. I thought, well, I'll see you, buddy. So I got home. And I got one, too. I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to not do that. we're going to get around it. We're going to go to the Air Force. And it was a wise move. It was a couple more years extra for me, 4 years instead of 2. But it gave me opportunity to get further my education and stuff as well. See, my dream then was to get out of the house as soon as I could. But that's the avenue I had to take to do it. But even though we leave the house, even though we leave their authority, y'all, if there is such a thing as that, we still should respect our parents. And we're called to mind the sacrifice that they made. I think of my mom working 2 jobs. I think of the things that they've done. The bedside, when you were sick, sitting by your bedside. Many hours worked to provide food, shelter, clothing for you. Now, Dad and Mom made us get out and work. I paid, when I graduated, I paid for my ring, I paid for my pictures, I paid for all my stuff out of my money I worked to get, okay? There wasn't nothing wrong with that. There wasn't anything wrong with that. I know of a young boy, he was still 30 years old or so, living at home, and his parents had to pay rent, $200 a month. Wasn't nothing wrong with that. Wasn't anything wrong with that. You say, well, why was that? Well, he's already been out on his own. He's almost 30 years old. Hey, we're still under their authority. We're still under their roof. It's their home. Yeah, you're part of their home, but it's their home, okay? And they don't deserve anything less than your respect. I read that a 12-year-old boy had submitted himself to his parents under Luke 2:51. And hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. Submit yourself to your parents. If they ask you to do, they have the authority. You ought to give them the respect and honor they deserve, okay? Let's look on an experience to regard. So let me say a word just about parental advice. Many young people simply refuse to hear what their parents tell them. And as a result, they often experience some trouble and hard times. Young people, be well to remember that parents speak from experience. And they gain that experience by going through some hard times themselves. They've already been there. They know what that's like. Hey, their warnings are given to guide their children and to guide them in the right path, okay? And to steer them in the right ways, to be aware of and be able to get past the obstacles of life, okay? Experience is far wiser than ignorant child. It's an ignorant child that refuses again to counsel the counsel of his parents, their wisdom and their experience. I recall a little girl who, as a youngster, she was unhappy because her parents had refused her some wishes. That evening, her mother, kind of hearing her prayer from outside the door, she said, "Please, Lord, don't give her any more children. She don't know how to treat the ones she's got now." So that's kind of the attitude of us. We think mom and them don't know nothing. I thought mine was dumb. Mark Twain said, when I was 14 years old, my father was so ignorant, I hated to have the old man around. But when I got 21 years old, I was astonished at how much he had learned in 7 years. See, it's amazing. It's amazing. These teenagers today with all this social media and all this Facebook and all this Instagram and all these things I know nothing about and don't want to know nothing about. I don't want to get involved in them. I've got a thing on my phone, I think I told y'all. I signed up for it because it said Georgetown Neighborhood Watch. I thought that was just in our little complex. It's all over Murfreesboro. I get junk all over Murfreesboro. And this one's complaining about this, and this one's complaining about that, and somebody stole the car, and somebody done this. I don't want to hear all that junk. I don't want to get into all that. I just want, if it's something of importance, I want to hear about it. If there's something going on in the neighborhood, I want to hear about it. We have pretty good security over there anyway, so I don't worry about it. So I probably will get off of Neighborhood Watch, okay? I don't have time for Neighborhood Watch. Let's move on. There's a respect that is deserved, definitely. Again, while this verse speaks primarily to young people, it's pretty much to children. It speaks to parents too. It speaks to parents too. Look at it. Children will have a difficult time respecting a parent that hasn't lived the life worth honor. worthy of that honor. They've lived it. Let me just give you three things, okay? They're watching for your faithfulness. They're watching for your faithfulness. Parents need to remember that children will respect a life that is lived faithfully. Children long to see their parents living with their best interests at heart. When a child knows that mom and dad really care about what's happening to them and with them, they'll respond, I think, definitely respond with love. Let's face it, many parents want their kids to do right because it makes them look better. That's what they want. Their primary concern is, what will my friends think of me if little Johnny does this and does that? Others are devastated when their children start to turn out different than they had planned. Let me give you some good advice. If you have children still in your home, and you have grandchildren, or you have great-grandchildren, never talk about other people's children. You never know what yours are going to turn out and do. I've never defended my children when they were wrong. I never did that. Never. They were wrong, they were wrong. I had my son one time, I'll never forget him. He had a book that he checked out, and it was late by a lot. And back then he owed about $5 or something, which I gave him, and went with him to give the librarian the book. He threw the book down and threw the money down. I grabbed him in the nape of the neck, and I said, "You pick that up, and you hand it to her very politely and tell her you're sorry, and also you're sorry the book was late." Now, he did it. He didn't want to do it, but he did it, okay? I mean, we've lost this thing of yes, sir, and no, sir, and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and thank you, and you know what? We've lost all that. Why? Because we parents haven't insisted on it. But we turned out, what we do, we talk about other people's children, but then, boy, all of a sudden, yours act up. And it comes back to haunt you. See, a parent's duty is to their children is to love them unconditionally, and faithfully place their needs ahead of their own. My mom and dad sacrificed for us to have things. They sacrificed. I know they did. There were times that we struggled. Hey, times got hard sometimes. When Sherry and I got our children, when we got Shane and Stephanie, there were times we struggled. And hey, it took everything we had to get some of the things they had need of, okay? I think kids will respect you. They'll respect you for the way that you're faithful. By the way, faithfulness to the Lord goes a long way for kids, I guarantee you. When we live as though the Lord, His work, His worship, His house are optional, our children come to believe it too. Don't expect them to be faithful. Don't think they'll be a dedicated Christian when you aren't. Remember what I've said before. Whatever we do in moderation, they'll do in excess. If you start saying, well, just Sunday morning's good enough, I don't have to go Sunday night, Wednesday night, they won't come at all. It's going on in church. It's going on in homes right now. It's going on in homes right now. That's why we struggle with Borough Club. That's why we struggle with bus ministry. See, it used to be this way, and some of you know this, but I've worked around the bus ministry. And I've gone into the apartment, the projects, the whatever, and literally walked in with him on the couch drunk, her in the bed drunk, get the kid up, dress the kid, get the kid ready to run out the door, get him a donut maybe when we get to the church. It used to be where parents would start coming to church with their children. Their children, Miss Pat, would be the motivator for them. And they'd start driving the children in instead of you having to bus them, Brother George. Not now. Don't happen like that. We become a glorified babysitter for them. That's what we do. We give them relief, okay? They get some relief from the kids. They get to sober up while the kids are over here or wherever. What about fairness? We earn respect by being fair. See, this again, we are firm, and what we ought to be firm in what we say, but we ought to also be tempered in our actions. I never would I whip my child when I was mad. I would tell them to go to their room, and I'd be there in a little bit. I didn't want that to ever get out of hand. And you should never let that get out of hand, okay? Discipline is one of the things that comes to mind here. There are parents who believe that the answer to every, again, infraction is a beating, okay? No, it isn't. That ain't the way. Brother Mike hit on it just a little bit Sunday evening. Grace. Shows them grace. There's liberty. There are others that feel that the children can just do as they please. Let them go. They may not like what their kids do. There's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of threatening. There's a lot of pleading. But there's never any discipline imposed on the child. And those two methods, they represent maybe the extreme. But in fairness, you ought to give your child, some fairness. Okay? There are times when we must discipline. We must discipline. Proverbs again, 13:24. He that spareth his rod hateth his son. But he that loveth him chasteneth him. Okay? And it says betimes. It says chasteneth him betimes. Betimes means before the usual or expected time or early. Get it early. Start it early. If you start them when they're 3 or 4 years old, you can't wait till 16. Can't bring the paddle out at 16. Can't take the belt off. My daddy used to take the belt off. And I can still remember those days. Okay. Proverbs 28:17 says, correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight to thy soul. If you correct him. Any parent who refuses to apply the Board of Education to the seat of learning, I'm going to tell you, if you do that, you're doing your child a great injustice. Okay? There's times when we need to allow our children a little growing room. I don't have a problem with that. That's grace. You're applying grace there. But our job is to find that place where they can be themselves and still learn that God has a plan for their lives. There's times, again, of grace. They don't come with a training manual. I wish they did. But the only training manual we got is this right here. Okay? This is the training manual we go by. To raise our children, this is what we're to go by. And if we're not careful, we'll be neglect in our duty to them. And how about fruitfulness? Parents earn respect from their children when they, again, can see that their parents invested their lives and their children's lives. When we give them love and time and patience and encouragement and hope, they'll respond to that. They'll respond with that respectfully, I think, with love. Thank God for parents who invest their lives in their children. I mean, I'm talking about, we didn't have this issue. Today it's become a major issue. We didn't have ball games on Wednesday nights. But I went to all my kids' ball games. Sometimes it would be where Shane would be on the field over here and Steph would be on the field over here at the same time. Me and Sherry had to split up. Wasn't no Sunday ball. Wasn't no Wednesday ball. Wasn't no, I coached Little League. I coached Booster League basketball for 13 years. And we practiced in some of the school gyms down in Smyrna. Never on a Wednesday night. Never did we go on Wednesday night. I would not call a practice on a Wednesday night. Okay? Let's try to finish up here tonight if we can. Look at the reward that will be delivered. This is pretty simple. This verse contains more than don't. It also gives us a great promise. This verse reminds those who obey father and mother that they're promised that a lengthy life. Okay? Look what it says again. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days, plural, may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Wow. If we go over to Ephesians 6:3, it says that it may be well with thee and thou mayest live long on the earth. If you honor your parents, okay? When one honors their parents as they ought to do, then God has promised them longer days upon the earth. That's why I say, when I see somebody who is even in their 80s, I mean, I'm going to a funeral. I'm going to preach a funeral of a 52-year-old Friday. 52-year-old. My daughter was 51. My granddaughter was 23. When you see somebody who lives honoring their parents, and they're up in their 80s, Brother Gene Covenant was 92 years old. I guarantee you he honored his parents. I'll guarantee you he did. And I guarantee you he probably raised I pretty much know he raised Rick to do the same thing for him. Okay? Now, when Rick got away from that a little bit, because he was down in Columbus, Georgia, and Daddy was up here, it kind of left Brother Gene without anybody other than us. But we were here for him. We were here for him. That's the way it ought to be. Again, I emphasize, y'all, this is your family. Y'all are my family. I treat y'all like my family. Okay? We fuss and fight every once in a while. Okay? But that's what families are all about. See, I believe that what that says, and I take it literally. I take this book literally. If this is true, and it is, then it can also be said that if we refuse to honor our parents, we'll probably have an abbreviated life. Now, I'm not saying that's true in every case. Okay? A 23-year-old, or a 30-year-old, or a 40-year-old. But just think on that, okay? Our days will be lightened, it says here. Not only does the Lord promise length of days to those who honor their parents, he also promises blessings to those, again, who choose this way of life. George Washington had his heart set on going to sea. His trunk was already on board a ship when he went to tell his mama about it. He found her with tears in her eyes and a heavy heart as he was getting ready to leave. He turned to one of the hired servants and ordered him to go and get his trunk off of that ship. He said, I will not leave and break my mother's heart. Well, let me tell you what honor he got. I think y'all know he was once a president, okay? God promised that blessing to him, I'm sure, because of that right there, that very statement. I don't know how old he was when he died, but hey, he honored his mother. And that's what we need to be doing. That's what that whole verse is about, is honoring your father and your mother, okay? Proverbs says, the eye that mocketh at his father and despiseth to obey his mother. The ravens, listen to this now. Brother Patrick says, the ravens of the valley shall pluck it out. Pluck it out. And the young eagle shall eat it. Can you imagine that? Okay. I wish the children could have been here. Y'all pass it on to them. All right. Let's go to our prayer list, okay? And we got several. Again, our neighbor, Brother Tim Dietz. I met with him today. His wife